Hello, my name is Lawrence Myers Reese. I am an MFA candidate in the Department of Art at UNLV. I'm presenting my thesis work, In the Image of, Towards a Trans Talmud. A lot of writing on transgender Jews identifies the conflicts between Jewish and trans, or where custom and tradition clash with the here and now. What the text often miss out on is the potential creation of a new body of text that canonizes intersex, non-binary, and trans experiences as part of religion from the beginning. I'm inspired by the layout of the Talmud, a document that spans over 60 volumes discussing Jewish law. The text is organized almost in a spiral, in which areas of the page correspond to areas of time or different individuals. I set out to create an exhibition and book that overlap voices and text, displaying conflicting information alongside and on top of one another, thus building up a narrative of trans presence in religion through a queer aesthetic lens. The exhibition title includes the phrase "Towards a Trans Talmud," referencing contemporary religious scholars' work, Joy Layden's 2018 article, Towards a Trans Theology, and Max Strassfeld's forthcoming monograph, Trans Talmud. This art installation is not a mere aggregation of quotes that define transgender existence. The goal is to use the act of projection, painting, erasing, and audio to build an environment in which multiple viewpoints are taken into account. Texts from prominent transgender theologians and the Babylonian Talmud are painted on walls to envelop the reader in text. These writings include debates of the gender of Abraham and Sarah as eunuchs, gendered prohibitions against clothing and ritual garments, and the tale of how a man developed the ability to breastfeed a child. As viewers walk through the text, they are surrounded by the sounds of blessings, readings, whispers, and upheaval of a narrative reading. To guide the viewer through this mess and tumult of both noise and visuals, a companion booklet was produced. This serves as a guide to the mural and audio, providing context, sources, and information for the viewers, while exploding the formula of a traditional book page with overlaying warped text. The graphic designer, Monet Green, is a former UNLV student who has worked for the Care Center and Center for Social Justice on campus. This wayfinding booklet draws on the visual references of the Talmud with text organized in a spiral, feminist zines, and Jewish folk art. The core of the thesis work is contained in one wall through a plural reading and in reinterpretation from lines of Genesis. In Judaism, God has a name. Here it is spelled G!DX, a visual reference to the Tetragrammaton, the four-letter name of God in the Bible. Yud, He, Vav, He, the ineffable name, the unpronounceable. Here, this is not gendered, neither is the Tetragrammaton. It is impossible to pronounce. Several interpretations of the line in which humans are created in Genesis 13 are placed next to and on top of each other. With each version, the gender and narrative changes. We see the original Hebrew and subsequent English wordplay of humans from humus, or earth being from earth, afar min ha'adam, ha'adam. Creation stories often feature human beings formed from earth, and in the Jewish creation story, humans are breathed into by a soul, by word, by text. Kabbalists say that words are what form the universe and that all existence is made of tiny Hebrew letters, forming our bodies, souls, and stories. The stairs lead to a wall and a shelf, referencing the bima of the synagogue and the Torah ark in which the most sacred texts are contained. On the shelf is an open book with the morning blessings for transgender Jews in a Reform Judaism prayer book for LGBTQ issues. And on the stairs lies an open Orthodox prayer book with a morning blessing for men that thanks God for not making me a woman, and for women, thanking God for making them according to his will. Definitions and arguments over the status of non-conforming bodies span across the central pillar and north wall of the gallery. The Talmud is a sea of men's voices across centuries, and as we approach their halakhic rulings across millennia, we see biases against the intersex or trans bodies that they police. Though there is no denying that the Talmud provides much more representation of non-cisgender or non-normative bodies than most religious legal texts, the Talmud and the rabbis and scholars of the Talmud do not provide comfort or easy acceptance. Although some scholars, myself included, argue that this representation is beyond normal, it does not mean that the Talmudic rabbis would have accepted transgender identity as an easy contemporary Jew may hope. Behind a curtain comes sound. The lapping of waves at Lake Mead and the Dead Sea are an undercurrent to whispers repeating the phrase in Hebrew, "Who made me trans and not cis," as a prayer. Two wicker chairs face away from the viewers as speakers face out. The mechitza is the divider that separates women from men in Orthodox prayer services. Where does a non-binary go? Where does a non-binary Jew go in a shul with a mechitza? Where do intersex people sit? Whose voices are being heard behind the curtain, and why are they forbidden? Canvases are supported by books. Leaned up against the wall are blank white canvases with text projected and painted over them, supported by books that were literally quoted in the exhibition or referential in the exhibition, providing a key or code for the visitors. The walls are like pages of the Talmud with different arguments over them. For instance, in this one, there are arguments over clothing and ritual fringes and garments as gendered prohibitions. On another wall is the story of Abraham and Sarah as eunuchs or tumtumim. Overlaid on the wall is my own story of my own conversion and circumcision, much like Abraham, choosing to be a different person, choosing a different name and a different path. As I paint this exhibition, I started to see the radical self-acceptance that could happen when you see yourself in the text. In addition to the installation, I produced works on paper or smaller pages, as well as embroidery and video. The works explore issues like queerness in text and halakha, as well as more personal meditations on these issues. The embroidery works reference the body, with prayer shawls embroidered with Shea Asani Trans or Who Made Me Trans, and a chest binder with ritual fringes, with repeating a blessing by a rabbi, thanking God for asking us to recreate ourselves. A video accompanies in which I myself perform the daily prayers and repeat those words, thanking God for making me trans, trying to reference the constant movement and repetition of the daily action that trans people take in recreating themselves just by putting on clothing. I don't see this exhibition as merely representation, or that representation is some perfect way of creating equality or improving minoritized situations. However, the findings of this research show that queer Jews are seeing things in religious texts that our teachers could never teach us. I see this work identifying a need and a presence. There's a plethora of vocal trans Jewish scholars, myself included, which is a sign that textuality is important to our experience and that our voices and opinions must be important as we codify and bring together a presence of trans, intersex, and non-binary individuals in religion. And most importantly, I see this as a way for religious communities to open up and accept people who are intersex, trans, or non-conforming. I've had the privilege of being a mentor to young trans Jews and having difficult conversations with Orthodox parents about how their children may or may not fit into their communities. There is a lot more research to be done, but I see this work as a jumping off point for us to be able to see trans people not as separate from religion, but wholly part of it. And I'm very grateful to be part of different communities and resources, which I'm sharing here, and so many wonderful scholars who've inspired me in this work. And I thank you so much for your time, and I hope to see you all soon.